Cheers. Hi everyone, how are we all?
Good, thank you.
Hi Lisa, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thanks.
Very good.
Busy day.
Busy day, busy day. Yeah, Sarah was saying she's had the same. Busy day for the BRMs. Yeah, Lisa, a lot of these people probably here because you did such a good job last time, right?
Thanks.
So many people comment on that, and I actually had a BRM today say how he's just started a new role remotely, and he used a few of your tips, especially like the booking out the diary full of meetings, etc., getting to know your stakeholders more, asking having the chance to ask more thorough questions. He really took that on board, and he said it's helped him so much in the new role. He's just joined Great Ormond Street as well, so all for a good cause, which is awesome.
Excellent. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, a lot of value is added, I think. It's the general consensus.
Lovely. Hi Sarah, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah. I was in the same boat as you, so yeah, I loved your hints and tips.
I don't think I feel like I've taken a breath today, but anyhow.
Oh God.
Sarah, just so you know, I have to drop off at 6, so I will have to disappear.
Okay, thanks for letting me know.
How's everyone else? Leighton, see your mic's unmuted. How are you?
I'm good. Just like everybody else, really. Very busy day, kind of just popping from one meeting to the next.
Yeah.
And I look at my diary for tomorrow and Thursday, and I'm thinking it's not much better.
Good week ahead.
Like me, it's 6 weeks in advance. The January's already gone as well.
Yeah. Yes. The only sort of comfort at the moment is I've got 2 days holiday, Monday, Tuesday next week, and I finish on the 18th of December at the moment. So I'm sort of
well, that sounds awesome. Yeah, that sounds really good. I've got 1 day left, one bit of holiday left. And I'm just trying to strategically place it for when I'm assume that I will feel most tired.
I've put the first week in January off, so I have to work up until Christmas Eve, which is unusual.
Oh no!
But then I'm not back at work until the 11th. So I thought
I
I'm going to do it the opposite way around. Everyone wants before Christmas, but January is a very long month if you have to do 5 weeks of fog. So I decided I'm going to do something that I want to do. I don't know what that is because lockdown and all the repercussions of Christmas will probably be kicking in by that point, but I'm not 100%. Going to work.
Yeah, well, that's the main thing, Malvina. I mean, it's nice to see you as well. I'm glad you came along. Really.
It's been a bit tight because I was literally going, I'm going away, leave me alone. Something for myself now. I've been hosting workshops for the last 3 weeks. So
wow.
2 workshops a week. So it's been quite an interesting journey. It'll be finished by the end of this week, and then all the fun starts of actually having to deliver something.
Well, I bet you're looking forward to your break then.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of like done by the time I get back, and it's quite funny that they're all like jumping through hoops at the moment. I just, you flippantly say something, and I was like, I'll be back by the 11th of January. Could you have it all finished so that I can start working on it? And they're like, all these meetings are suddenly appearing, and people are running everywhere trying to kind of make sure that they can sign all the contracts and get, the executive at my work all in place over Christmas to make sure.
Oh God, yeah. Busy month ahead, to say the least then, Malvina.
Definitely. But it's nice to be here, and I'm so glad I was able to make it.
Oh, likewise.
For Lisa, I missed the last session because Nathan and I didn't catch up until after that. So if there's a recording, I'd really like to see it because I could do with some good tips.
Yeah, absolutely, Malvina. It's all in the group anyway. So once you're all joined up with that, then you can easily view it there. And same with this one as well, if you ever have to drop off. But awesome. How's everyone else? All okay? Got a few people now.
Yep, good. Thanks, Nathan.
Oh, good, Sam. Nice to see you. Have you had a busy day as well?
Join the club, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It seems to be
It's December now, so it's chaos from here on out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, normally it's the English culture to kind of sign this month off, but yeah, I think this one's going to be a lot busier than other Decembers. Yeah, you don't have the excuse of any remote working or anything like that now, so we're all used to it. But how's everyone else? Just admitted quite a few people.
We're all okay, thank you. Well, I am at least.
Speak for the group.
Indeed.
Awesome. No, good to hear, Paul. Thanks for coming along as well.
No problem.
So it seems like we've got quite a few people at the minute. If anyone else joins, I'll just admit them as the session goes on. But I think now would be a good time to start, really. So thank you so much for everyone to coming along. Yeah, if you could all just do me a favour, and if you just mute yourself until the Q&A's on, that would be really helpful, just because there's a few bits of background noise for Sarah. I know it's really hard to when you're trying to speak over that, but that's what we deal with remote events. It's all okay. So guys, yeah, thank you so much for coming along. Today we're really lucky to have Sarah Fogg along with us, so I won't actually ruin her whole intro piece or steal the light from her, but she's yeah, really accomplished IT BRM, had some brilliant roles in her time, and is currently heading up IT relationship management at SSE, so a great person to host this event. And what we're going to do today, guys, is really kind of discuss the main qualities of an IT BRM, and what kind of successful qualities, what qualities a successful BRM would have. And then we're going to assess whether you can teach them or whether you're born with them, hence the title, you know, are BRMs born or made? It's all around this nature versus nurture side, so more on the kind of psychology of a BRM as opposed to all the kind of like hard facts, etc. So I will hand it over to Sarah now, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to share my screen and Sarah will present off of that, yeah, I'll hand that over to Sarah, and we can yeah, get the ball rolling with this. Should be a good one.
Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, so when we discussed what kind of topics we could do with this session, I really wanted to share some thoughts about really the essential natures of a BRM. So I'm going to start with a brief bio, so you can see, you know, where I've come from, what I've been doing, and then I'll go through 9 qualities of a BRM and why I think they're important, and again, as Nathan said, what, are they born or are they made? And then there'll be time for a conclusion and some questions at the end. So the first slide there with my bio on then. So I think the important thing to highlight from me is that when I started my career, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I just slid into IT without really realising that I'd done it. And I worked for Mars for 12 years and doing lots of different IT roles. And they were really good about moving you around into different roles. So every 2 years I had a different role. And I realised that the ones I enjoyed the most were the ones that were facing the business. So having IT having a purpose that actually meant something to the business. And they offered an amazing redundancy package, and at the time I was young, free and single, and decided to take the package and go and do a ski season and travel around Australia and Thailand. And when I decided to come back and look at what I wanted to do with my career, it was all around trying to find something that described that business connection to IT. So I was business solution manager for Yellow Pages for a while, and then business process and technology at SC Johnson. But then I found out there was this thing called BRM. And yeah, back in 2012, suddenly I heard of its job title, and I was Googling it and trying to find out more about it, and finding Vaughan Merlin had written stuff about it, if people know him. So I then actively tried to seek a career in BRM and landed a role at Urenco, where I set up the BRM function from scratch, which was fantastic. then after a few years of that, which was really pretty successful looking back, we got a new CIO in who decided that everything was going fine, so we didn't need BRMs anymore. And as long as I said, well, it's all going fine because of BRMs, somehow that message didn't land with him. And so again, I took a package. And since then, I've done some shorter term contracts with O2 and Royal Holloway University. And now I'm at SSE, which is a great place to be. I've been here 9 months now, started just before lockdown. And it's really hard with COVID, etc. But I'm absolutely loving all the challenges. Meanwhile, all through all of that, I have been closely engaged with the BRM Institute, so I was a founding member. I've done a few of their forums, and more recently they asked me if I would be nominated to be on their board of directors, and I just heard a couple of weeks ago that I was successful, so I'm now on the board of directors. And not only that, they made me vice chair as well. So I'm very privileged to be working really with BRM royalty in that capacity. I don't know why they chose me. Maybe they just need somebody from Europe. But yeah, it's a huge privilege, and I'm quite humbled to take on that role.
Absolutely, Sarah, and congratulations on that as well. And that's also, guys, why you know, really lucky to have Sarah here today, because she's also done kind of a lot of the theory for BRMs as well, so really understands it from both sides, both actually doing the role herself and also, you know, the kind of theory classroom stuff too. So yeah, really excited for this one, Sarah. So let's go on to the first quality then, shall we?
Sure. So just to say that Nathan's going to hand out these slides afterwards, so you don't need to take any notes or anything. And these are very much sort of personal reflections on what I've learned over the years, rather than being something I've grabbed from the BRM Institute or any other training. So it might be slightly off, but it's really what I've learned to share with you guys. So my first one, right at the top of the list, is empathy. So it is a core part of any soft skills. Of course, you can have training for soft skills, and in the past I've had Myers-Briggs type indicator training in quite some depth that's been really helpful. But empathy for me is really important, because with your stakeholders in the business and also with your IT colleagues, you really need to be able to relate to them and put yourselves in their shoes. It reminds me of that phrase that I got from To Kill a Mockingbird. You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb inside of his skin and walk around in it. That was something that Atticus said to Scout, I think, in To Kill a Mockingbird. And that's quite extreme to think of, you know, being in somebody else's skin and walking around. But if you can feel how it is to be that person, then you're going to be loads more successful in this role. And the infographic I put on the screen there of taking the other person's perspective, considering their emotions and withholding judgment, for me, that really sums up what empathy is all about. So yeah, the judgment piece is quite hard sometimes, because you might go, oh, well, he's just annoyed because he's such and such, but you should never try and judge or draw conclusions like that. Just try and figure out how it feels to be that architect that's always in the way when you're trying to get things done, or how it feels to be that developer who's under the cosh because everybody wants a piece of him. Or on the business side, how does it feel to be that academic person who's trying to do a great job lecturing their students, but is struggling with technology, whatever it might be. I think the only thing about it as well is that it can be an overdone strength. So when I was at Royal Holloway University, the guys there were great at empathy, but they'd taken it to maybe an extreme where they were ending up empathizing with people so much that they were actually taking on all of their problems, and it was causing them to be involved in activities that really weren't BRM activities. So they would be they'd get calls from stakeholders saying, can you sort out somebody to move my PC from one desk to another, please? And they would do it because they would just, oh, you know, I can see that it's really important to them and it'll buy me some goodwill. And yeah, but you're never going to get to the partner level if you behave like that. So there's a sort of watcher there that it can be an overdone strength at times. And in terms of whether it's born or made, I think it's one of those things that comes very naturally as you're growing up, to some people and maybe not to others. But you certainly can do soft skills training, but it has to be probably quite in depth, like Myers-Briggs stuff, to really start to understand different personalities types to develop those skills.
I think that's the key thing as well, Sarah, isn't it? It's one of those things that, in my opinion, it does absolutely come naturally. You either understand people or you kind of struggle with it. But there's definitely that point where you know, you can't really teach empathy. You can't teach genuine empathy. I feel like you can teach someone to ask the right questions and try and understand people's problems and almost be emotionally intelligent in that sense. Yeah. But to be truly empathetic, I feel like it's something that you're born with almost a foundation level for, and then you build upon. I think the problem with that, though, is like you correctly said there, Sarah, you can almost be too empathetic. Oh no, you know, the person's PC is not working, they're not going to be able to do the job. And, you know, you start going on to that kind of delivery support aspect where you're not really on the strategic level anymore. So it's about drawing that line for all business partners, definitely, without a doubt. But no, I agree with you on that one, Sarah. I do feel as though you're born with it, but you can teach it to an extent. It's kind of grey area. Was having an interesting conversation with someone on the article on that one as well, but we'll leave that to the end. So on to the next.
Yeah, number 2 of 9. Yeah. So this one is about dealing with ambiguity. So as BRMs, we're often in the innovation space, and we're dealing with things where we're doing estimates that are plus or minus 100%, and there's loads of things that are just unknown at the very early stages, and we need to be very conceptual in the way we think about things. And we're dealing with stakeholders who kind of know what they want, but they've got no idea how to get it, or maybe they don't even know exactly what it is they want. And then you're dealing with perhaps architects who are trying to make sense of what you're saying to them, and there's maybe many ways forwards, lots of different options, and you're trying to make sense out of nonsense. So it can feel really uncomfortable to be working in that space if you're pulling together disparate people and trying to tease out answers to hard questions. But this is where we add a lot of value. So if it was easy, we wouldn't be needed. If the business always knew exactly what they wanted and there was always an IT solution that stacked up with it, then we wouldn't be needed. But that's never the case. And there are always options to consider. There's always better ways of doing things. And sometimes you can solve things with business processes rather than actual IT solutions. I certainly had that experience at Urenco, where I had a request for a business intelligence solution. But when I delved into what it was all about, really all I needed to do was change their roles and responsibilities and have a clear ownership for different tasks, and then they could get a report out of the other end without any difficulty whatsoever. So I think the thing there is feeling comfortable to be in that ambiguous situation, and knowing that you don't have all the answers, but your job is to bring the threads together and see that there's value in doing that. And I think delivery orientated people, like project manager type people, will often struggle with that. So they prefer to see tasks beginning and ending and knowing what's in between that beginning and end. So when I was at Urenco and setting up that BRM function, I'd been given a team of BRMs who'd come from other functions. So one was a service delivery manager before, one had been a project manager before, and they both struggled with the kind of ambiguous nature of the role. And one of them stepped down very quickly and said, no, I'm better suited to service delivery. Really sorry, but it's not for me. The other, the PM, tried it for about a whole year and tried to put himself into that space. And in the end said, no, I'm better as a project manager. So that was disappointing for me because I was really trying to persuade them that BRM is a great role to have. But actually, in the end, they were right. And I managed to recruit somebody in who didn't even have any BRM experience or even any IT experience, but just had the right attitude. He was a real conceptual thinker. He was very engaging with all his stakeholders. And the rest of it, we were able to train. So this is another one I'm going to say is kind of born, that you know, you need to be born with this being okay with ambiguity, and the way to get better at it, if you haven't been born with it, really is through experience, coaching, mentoring experience. It's not really something you can specifically train, I don't think, but experience can definitely lessen the shock of being out of control.
Without a doubt. So Sarah, would you say on that point then, you know, when you brought in that new recruit, even though they had no, you know, ITBRM experience, no experience in that field, they were better business partners than those who were from the, say, service delivery background, etc. And that's through being born with that ability to deal with ambiguity, as opposed to trying to teach how to think, like conceptually, etc.
Definitely. I mean, he took a while to get to be a finished article because he had a lot to learn about IT and projects and the business, but he was eager for that. He had that inquisitiveness, and he was willing to put in the hard yards. I remember because it was a big plant that he worked on, he said, you know what, Sarah, I'm just going to buy a big coat and I'm going to walk around to all the different places, and I'm going to see the logistics managers and see the manufacturing managers and just get into their space and find out all about what they do. Okay. And sure enough, he bought this big coat and he walked miles. So yeah, he did really well.
Okay, good. No, that's good to know. So yeah, let's go on to the next one then, Sarah. So double deep skill sets, it's vital, as we all know, right?
Yeah, and this is one where to be brilliant at the BRM role, you need to understand IT and you need to understand the business in equal depth, and that means both of them being really deep, because everybody expects you to be an IT expert and a business expert at the same time. So you can't just be deep in one and not the other. You have to be deep in both, which is really tough, right? So there's a real yin and yang to this, and there's a symbiotic relationship between IT driving the business and the business driving IT. So what we're really looking at is having this learning agility, I would call it, where you're not going to be an expert in both of them. So whichever is your weaker one, you need to focus on the most, and whichever is your stronger one, you still need to keep abreast of what's happening. So you can't afford to drop one in favour of the other at any particular time. So in my situation right now, of course, I've got to learn all about the energy industry. I've got to learn all about renewable energies and electronic vehicles and heat pumps and all of that drive to net zero, and the impacts that all of this has on the consumer and therefore what we're trying to do for them. So I'm diving into that as much as I can, and it's fascinating. So I'm very happy to be doing that, but I know that at the moment that's my deficit, and that's where I need to dive in. And curiosity as well is something that will really help you, whichever side you need to develop. And then also just be comfortable that nobody can know everything. So maybe in your team, you've got some people who are brilliant at the business side and others that are brilliant at the IT side, and that's okay too. And you can all learn from each other. And in terms of which is born and made, I think this one is definitely one that's more on the trainable side. So you can definitely put the hard yards in and learn. And that's one that's not so much an innate personality trait.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that, Sarah. In terms of being able to learn your industry, you know, it's something that we're all, well, we all have to go through at some point, right? And the IT knowledge kind of stays there. Or if you're on the other side, you've come from a business background and you're going into IT, no one knew how to code before. No one knew how to, architect X, Y, and Z. So it's definitely something that is teachable, this one, which is good. So we're on 2-1 at the minute then, Sarah. So,
Yeah.
what's the next one got in store?
Yeah. Okay. Analysis. So we do need to be able to drill down into details. So we do need to be able to get to the nub of a problem. And there, I've listed there some of the analysis tools that are out there. Clearly things like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, the questioning, the 5 whys, where you ask why, then why again, until you get really deeply into that. There's fishbone diagrams, root cause analysis, and PESTLE, so political, economic, social, technical, legal and environment. All of those kind of techniques can help with analysis. So, but I think in the end, we just need to be quite smart. There's no getting away from having that intelligence that you can do that. And I have been unfortunate in one case where I had a BRM working for me that just wasn't smart, unfortunately. And no matter how much I tried to teach him these techniques, it just never landed with him. And in the end, he just felt uncomfortable, the poor guy. It wasn't for him. But again, this is one where it can be an overdone strength as well. So if you're really in the weeds of your analysis all the time and not lifting your head and seeing the strategy, then that's going to be a failing too. And this is something I experienced at O2. There was some real analysis paralysis, I'll call it, where people were going round and round and round, analysing and never coming to a conclusion. It was like they were analysing for analysis' sake and not driving it to a business outcome. So that was, I had a whole team of 35 business analysts who were just churning out process diagrams and stuff, and it was just never used, right? So that there's a balance there between needing to do this well, but then knowing when to stop and move on to the more strategic stuff.
So would you say then, Sarah, that's very similar to, for example, empathy? Like, you're born with an analytical mindset, and that's of course a strength, and same with being empathetic, but you can't get too caught up in that kind of natural analytical brain of yours, or you may, same with empathy as well, right? You can't get too empathetic, else you start solving problems that just don't fall under you. Is that what you're saying here? So you're very much born with the analytical mindset and brain and ability to analyze, but just don't get too carried away with that as well.
Yes, I think there are situations where it's really important to be able to analyze stuff, and sometimes it's going to be you've got a bad situation because something's going wrong in service, and you need to be able to do that root cause analysis and help out with that. There's no kind of getting away from that. But at the same time, you can't be doing that all day, every day as a BRM. Yeah,
there needs to be conclusions and actions made off of the back. Yeah, exactly. Okay, awesome. So we're on 3-1. So we're on 3-1. It's not looking too good for tort at the moment. But so as connectors, then, what's your point around being a connector?
I guess this is quite strongly connected to BRM theory. It is one of the things that we talk about as being BRMs. We connect, we negotiate, and I forget what's the third one now. Connecting, networking. Yeah, connecting and
negotiating.
Yeah. So this is one that links, I suppose, to the double deep skills, where you absolutely cannot be an expert in everything. And if you try to be, then people find that you come unstuck quite quickly. And so you end up sometimes as a BRM knowing quite a lot about broad things, but not deep in every area. So, you know, I know quite a lot about IT architecture, but I would never call myself an architect, and I would never make architectural decisions without someone who truly is in that space. And likewise, with project managers and solution architects and all the people that we deal with, business analysts, they're experts in their field. And you can be successful as a BRM by bringing the right people together, as opposed to trying to answer all the questions yourself. And that's also where the fun is sometimes, you know, bringing disparate people together who don't normally talk to each other, perhaps in business intelligence, people don't really talk to people in architecture very often, and then you get an initiative coming from the business that needs them to talk to each other. And that's when you start to make the connections, marry them up, bring them together, and start good conversations. And the thing that a BRM can bring to those conversations is the strategic context, and being able to make prioritization calls. So, you know, you might get an architect saying, well, this is the best long-term solution. And you're going, no, actually prioritization says we need to do something sooner than that. And you can get a lot of satisfaction from building bridges across different areas. So here I am at SSE now, and I find myself in these situations quite a lot. So just last week, it was all about how do we support the Power Apps platform. And I was bringing together people from the Office 365 team, architecture, business representatives, BRMs, business change, and saying, right guys, we've got this problem. We know that we want to support this new way of working for SSE. We don't have any resources. How can we do it? What's the right approach? Is there a long-term goal and something we can do in the meantime? And getting all those people together probably gave us more questions than answers in the first instance, but it gives you a platform to then move ahead with what the next steps are and bring it to a conclusion. So this one, I think, is one that's trainable.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say that if you are innately extrovert, then you might find it easier to put these connections together, perhaps. But I think introverts can equally develop this habit and start to feel more and more comfortable with it. And I don't think that's something that is, there's a need, sort of nature thing there. It's more developing a habit and learning to do it as a normal part of your day, and thinking that this is absolutely fine. If you don't know all the answers, you can bring people together.
Absolutely, Sarah. I'd completely agree. I think with being able to connect the right people, you know, it's something you can teach, right? You know that X, Y, Z people need to be in the same room. These guys are all involved in the business outcome, and it's absolutely necessary to pair them up. I think that's something you can absolutely teach, right? And it's such a natural thing for a BRM as well within the role, because I feel like with BRMs, it's often looked at, of course, pairing for business and IT, well, IT BRMs, of course. But like you correctly mentioned there, it's also about connecting internally. You know, there's different departments within IT, different silos that never speak to each other. So it's imperative for you to be able to learn this skill and, of course, use it internally and externally with the rest of the business, without a doubt. So I'm free too. So, yeah. Sarah, what's your thoughts about strategic thinking then?
Yeah, so this is really key to a BRM role, isn't it? Because if we stay at the operational or service delivery level and all we do is escalations from tickets that have gone awry, then we're not really doing our partnering role. And it's really hard, though, to lift stakeholders sometimes from their day-to-day concerns. But it's important, and it's got to be our North Star, if you like. So we need to know our sense of direction is getting towards that North Star of the future, basically. Having that line of sight to the bigger picture. So when I was at Urenco, I ran a workshop at Düsseldorf Airport with all the business stakeholders we could muster together to tease out the strategy with a range techniques. And the first couple of hours, the only things that were coming out of it were things that were today's problems or possibly up to about a year away. And in the end, I was like, we really need to think further forward into the future. Just think about something entirely different, like what's your favourite hobby? And one of them said, oh, I play golf. And I said, right, what's your golf club of the future? Like, if there are no limits, what would it be like conceptually? And he's like, oh, well, maybe if it was heated, that would help me on a cold day. And maybe if it could analyse my swing as I was going and give me feedback. And we just start to brainstorm completely different things that weren't connected to business. And then out of that started to flow ideas of what they needed to do for the next 3 to 5 years. So it's, again, it's not an easy thing to do, to get people thinking that way. And sometimes you might have to take a step back and think they're not ready for this yet. But where I am now at SSE, because we've got funding cycles of 5 years, our next 5-year funding cycle is 2023 to 2028. So we need to start now with all the conversations about what do we need until 2028. And we're right in the mires of being in the very unknown space and teasing out what that means. But all of our stakeholders know that it's coming and they're starting to think about it. And our job is to tease all of that out and try to turn all of these ideas into things that will become projects. So it's really, really exciting time to be at SSE in a BRM space.
Brilliant. Well,
yeah.
Sarah,
then,
carry on. Apologies.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is if we just are demand managers as well, sometimes we take the easy path sometimes to get the demand off our plate and through into a project instead of thinking, is this right for the longer term? So we always have to link IT strategy and business strategy and make sure that they're aligned or even converged.
Absolutely. And Sarah, so with this, what would you say it is? Would you say it's trainable? Would you say it's, you know, you're naturally a strategic thinker? I mean, what's your take on this one?
No, I think it's trainable. I think if you're more of a conceptual thinker than a data and numbers thinker, maybe you might find it easier to think about the future and what's needed. But actually, it's all about developing that habit and just developing that habit of letting go of the day-to-day stuff that can be learned, I think.
Absolutely. Just kind of taking a step back and seeing the bigger picture, really, of that front. Absolutely. Well, no, okay, that's brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. So moving on to resilience now.
Yeah, so unfortunately, this is something that we do need as BRMs, isn't it? It's a hard job to do, and we can't be doing it if we take everything really personally. And I mean, it's good to have a personal connection to your work, but you do need to, I think it's a phrase in yoga, you let the positives in and you breathe the negatives out, right? Yeah. so you kind of develop a thick skin. And this is becoming more and more important because we're all expected in the new digital ways of working to do much more agile stuff. And that means fast failure sometimes. So it's okay to have a go at something and fail. And that's becoming more and more cultural now. Fast failure is okay, but slow failure really isn't. And BRM needs to be in that fast space of making sure that failure doesn't go on forever. And yeah, learning the lessons as a habit. That's we often have projects where we do a lessons learned session at the end, but how often do we really learn and really ingrain those lessons? And in an agile environment, those lessons need to be coming thick and fast the whole time so that we learn and we go forward to the next thing. So yeah, it's really positive and really important to stay positive. And I have to say that sometimes we just have to look after ourselves, and that's been really hard under COVID-19, hasn't it, for a lot of us?
Yeah.
So at SSE, mental health is taken very seriously. Like, there's lots of guidance all the time. There's lots of support with apps and training and employee assistance programs and those kind of things. And line managers are constantly told to look out for their staff, which is really, really positive. So there may be times when you just need to take some time out or just step back and support yourself and build yourself back up again. And if you find that your resilience is being tested all the time, then you might have to think, is this the right role for me, or is this the right organisation for me? So when I was at O2, it was like that. My resilience was just tested all the time. And I just got to a point where it's not right for me anymore.
Yeah.
So I took the opportunity to move on. So is it born or made?
Yeah.
I think it's something that's learned in childhood, actually. I think it's something that your parents help with, or if you've had any negative experiences in childhood, how your parents help you cope with it really helps. So I can remember, you know, when my grandfather died when I was 8, and how my parents helped me with that. And, you know, I think sometimes people can go through their whole childhood without never having anything wrong, you know, get straight A students all the way through to university, and then the first time something happens that's hard, they really struggle, right? So some of us have been lucky or unlucky to have those kind of experiences that we've learned from as children, but they can be learned, of course, in adulthood too. So as you approach difficult times, can you take the lessons? So now that I'm a parent and teaching my son, when he only got 50% in his maths test, I'm like, okay, but what have you learned? What did you not do well? Did you do enough revision? Did you just decide you wanted to go skateboarding instead of do your revision? Or were there some topics that you really didn't quite understand and you were just too shy to ask the teacher to explain? So I think it's something that's learned, but it can be learned very early on, actually.
Yeah.
But we all have to be resilient as BRMs, definitely. So breathe in the positives and breathe out the negatives is probably my main message there.
Oh, I love that. I think this is like the most essential, or one of the most essential qualities for me, without a doubt. And like you said there, I mean, normally, Sarah, I would kind of argue that you're almost born with this resilient mindset. But after listening to your point just there, I think it's exactly, you know, what you say is very true, in the sense that, you know, childhood or any of these small events in your life, or maybe, you know, right now, if you're applying for lots of jobs and you're not getting too much traction on it, all of these things, you know, really, you know, thicken your skin. And it is something that I guess in hindsight can be learned, definitely, through life experiences. It's just, unfortunately, you're going to have to be put in the deep end on this one. And, you know, if you're not very resilient naturally, you're going to have a few setbacks before you are, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And in this, it is a hard role to do if you're not resilient, because there will be times when everything feels a bit impossible, because it's just chaos in the early stages of something. Nobody knows exactly what they're asking for. Things don't go through 100% easily the first time. You might have to come back and try a different tack. So yeah, it's a question of, you know, making it a habit to stay positive.
And I think oh, sorry, carry on, Sarah.
Yeah, because if you let it, and of course it's only natural for things to get you down occasionally, and let that happen, and then take a step forward from it and say, okay, that felt bad, what can I do about it?
Yeah, well, I think it kind of goes back to what Lisa was saying in the last event, right? In sense of, you know, taking a step back and looking after yourself and your mental and physical well-being. It really does a lot for you. You know, it's something not to be overlooked, but often is. I think that can really help with your resilience. You know, if I've had a day where not many people are picking up the phone to me, and you know, it may surprise you, all of you guys are lovely and often do pick the phone up to me, but in recruitment there's a lot of people who don't and don't want to speak to you, and you're getting, you know, voicemail. It's good to just take a step back, you know, maybe go to the gym or you know, go for a run, etc. These small things that break your day up and can almost enforce resilience in that way. You come back feeling refreshed, you come back feeling up for the challenge. You know, if you sit there constantly and it's just, some things are really difficult, right? It's no secret in all walks of life. So if you're hitting that constant obstacle that you can't get past, you know, and your resilience is really wearing thin, go away from your desk, you know, get out there, you know, do something that breaks it up and kind of come back with a bit more energy and tackle the problem again, I think is a key thing. So tying back to last event, yeah, that's a really good point, Sarah. I like that. So yeah, so with that one, we're saying you can learn that, but through kind of harsh or hard experiences.
Yeah, and again, when negative experience happens, let it happen, but then learn from it and see how you've moved on from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that about the fast failures. Okay, that's a really good point. Should stick with people. So on to leadership then. This is a debatable one. Yeah,
leadership. So BRMs are mini CIOs actually quite often, because of the contacts we have within IT and with the business. We can often be sort of mini CIOs. So it's important to have leadership skills. So that means making sure that your personal values are aligned with the way you conduct business. I think really good leadership skills, the leaders that I look up to the most are the ones that have both humility and courage. So, you know, definitely Obama versus Trump, you know, and the integrity piece where your words and actions are aligned. So, and then pace and lead is really important, I think. So what I mean by this is when you're dealing with stakeholders, you need to be at their pace to start with before you start trying to lead them. So an example there, when I was at Yellow Pages, I was trying to get one of my stakeholders to think about the future again. This is obviously a habit of mine. And he just said to me, look, Sarah, I'm working 70-hour weeks just to stand still. Do not talk to me about strategy. And that really taught me a lesson, because I'm like, okay, I need to meet him where he is right now, help him where he is right now, even if it's about fixing his laptop or you know, really small things. Because where he is at the moment, he's struggling so much. I can't lead him out of it until I'm pacing with him. And then once you've paced him for a while, then you can start to lead him. And that was a big lesson for me there. And you need to be very conscious of what's in it for him, because if there's nothing for him in his engagement with me, then that's an hour he could have back once a quarter. Instead of dealing with me, he could do whatever else he needed to do. So I had to make that valuable. And so being alongside him, pacing him, and before leading him where I needed him to be was the right course of action. And at Yellow Pages, for him, it was all about the printed books. And it took me a long time to talk to him about Yale.com and the mobile app and everything. But we got there in the end.
Old school. Yeah.
And then the last thing I put on the slide there is the trust equation, which some people might be familiar with. So it's credibility plus reliability plus intimacy, which is another word for relationship, I guess. But they couldn't have two R's. So are you credible? Are you reliable? So have you got your delivery stuff hat on as well? And you could, if you think of those things all being maybe 10 each, so you've got 10 plus 10 plus 10 gives you 30. But it's divided by ego or self-interest. So if you've got 10 points for ego as well, then you've started with 30 and you've ended up with 3, because you've got 30 divided by 10 is 3. Do you see what I'm getting at? So whatever figures you put on that, you build and build and build with your credibility, your reliability, and your intimacy. But if you've got your own agenda, shall we say, it completely undoes all of that work. And so it's no good having your own agenda and your own self-interest. You have to be leading the organisation, if you like.
Sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that really does, and I absolutely love that trust equation. I think that's brilliant. Really, really good way of putting it into kind of like tangible figures, etc. So what would your take on this one be then, Sarah? Because you can go to university and do various leadership courses, which absolutely, without a doubt, hammer the theory into you, and that's brilliant. But some people, as you've heard before, are born leaders, etc. You see people in playgrounds. I mean, what's your take on it?
I think it is something that's innate. It's born. I mean, you can certainly develop leadership skills as you've just described, but I think for people to really follow a leader, then that authenticity, that integrity, that humility, that courage, all of those qualities, people can see if you're trying at it and not really being it. People can sense when something's off with that, like we all can with Trump, for example. He's trying to show authenticity. No, doesn't align.
He's got like 0 on the ego, though, right? That's fine.
Oh yeah, that's it. Isn't it? The trust equation. That trust equation was Stephen Covey, by the way. If anybody's wanting to know where I got that from.
Yeah, really like that. Really like the trust equation. So on to the 9th and final point.
Yeah.
Energy.
Yeah. So energy for me is also really important. So especially positive energy. So people channeling positive energy in the right direction, fantastic. You need to have presence. So when you're dealing with people, you need to be in the room, in the moment, not half thinking about other things that you're doing. I think intrinsic motivation is really important. So that means you're self-motivated. Your motivation isn't coming extrinsically from external sources. I would also say actually that negative energy can be good if you're feeling like a lot of negative energy. That's okay if you can channel it. So what I mean there is if you're really frustrated about something, that can be a catalyst and a call to action to make something happen, so it can eventually channel to being a positive energy. And when I had that Myers-Briggs training early in my BRM days, they talked about power poses. So before you go to a stakeholder meeting, you sort of do your exercises or whatever it is that makes you feel strong, even if it's just standing up and, I don't know, making fists or something, and it just makes you feel different. I mean, I did it before this call, right? Yes, I'm going to do this call.
Sure, it's worked. It's worked very well.
It works.
Yeah.
It really does. So I would definitely say that people will follow energy as well. So if you're constantly like tired, and people are less likely to want to engage with you, whereas if you're up and out there, then they're much more likely to follow. So then, is it born or made? Well, I think it is something that's quite in you, in yourself, whether you're like that, but you can definitely develop it. And it's coming back to that self-care thing again. So doing exercise, investing in time for your body and your mind can definitely help your energy levels. And especially during this lockdown time where we tend to all sit in the same place for several hours every day. Get up, walk around. Maybe when you're doing calls, stand up and do them. You feel different when you're standing up. I know, Nathan, you probably tell people if they're having interviews by telephone, they should stand up for those calls because it changes the way you're projecting your energy.
Absolutely. Yeah, when I speak to all of you guys, I'm on my tiptoes as well, by the way. I'm just walking around. But no, absolutely. I completely agree. I never do calls sitting down. Nothing against it. It's a skill to do it. But yeah, it's all around, your kind of actions within your body, right? You know, you're getting up, you're moving around, you're feeling confident, you're assertive, like hand movements as well. If you sit there and speak like this and you're like this, you start to become, you're not really engaging, people aren't listening to you as much, you haven't got as much life in you. So yeah, it's all about expressions, moving around, power poses. I'm gonna try that, yeah, before I get on the phone. Yeah, flex some muscles, what's left. but no, yeah, absolutely love that. So Sarah, would you say for that, then it's a real kind of debatable one, that, isn't it? Because you've got the physical side of it, where if you don't get enough sleep, if you're not eating the right things, you don't have that energy. But then on the other side, you've got the you've got the mental energy, which is almost being resilient, being active, being curious, wanting to solve problems, and being proactive with things. I think that's the other side, which is a bit more natural. I don't think you can, eat your 5 a day and suddenly become like an Einstein, super curious, but you could, without a doubt, train your body to have a lot more energy, etc., and do the right things and take care for it. So that's a mixed one, isn't it? But if we're talking, I think if we're talking actual, mental energy, etc., I do genuinely believe that's something you're born with. I mean, what would you say? That curiosity, that spark that people have.
Yeah, so you can definitely improve it, but if you started with something that's in your personality to start with.
Have we just lost Sarah then? I believe. Guys, has everyone, has Sarah frozen for you all as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not just you.
Okay, perfect. I thought I was, I left 28 people waiting there, but Sarah did mention she's having a small bit of Wi-Fi trouble with all of this. So she's got another phone on the backup, so I'm sure she's going to reappear soon. There she is. There we go.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm a Mayan. Predicted your return, but no, Sarah. Sorry, we were just kind of wrapping up, really. I mean, in terms of the summary, then what's your take on everything? Would you like to summarize everything for us, then, Sarah?
Yeah, I would say it's one of those. The mix of skills I've put here, I could have chosen another 20 probably, and all the ones that you'd find in the BRM Institute about, being able to identify root cause analysis, those kind of things. And there's a lot of material out there, but these are the ones that I thought were most important. And I certainly don't possess all of them all of the time. And I do rely on other members of my team for different aspects. But yeah, if we consider are BRMs born or made, then I'd say the answer is yes.
Yes.
Right? So they are born and they're made, or they're made, yes. BRMs are born or made. So the conclusion really is that the ones with the natural attributes we've been talking about will find it easier to stay in that role. But many of the BRM skills can be developed. And in your team and in yourself, you will find different strengths and weaknesses, and you can develop different strengths and weaknesses. However, it can be a struggle if your ask to achieve is too far from your natural personality. And that's why not everybody can do every job, right? So people who are very technical are great at being architects. People who are very good with numbers are great at being accountants. Whatever it might be, I would never choose to be an accountant, and no matter how much training I gave it, I would never be particularly good at it. That's the reason why not everybody's good at everything. But a BRM role is so multifaceted. You can normally find that you're good at maybe 6 out of the 9, and the other 3 you'll find you can work on or exist in the rest of your team.
Yeah, look, Sarah, I absolutely agree with you there as well. I feel like, BRMs are born, and you have a lot more of a chance being a successful one if you're born with the main qualities. However, as you stated there, you know, if there are aspects of it which you can learn. It's just a case where someone who is naturally, you know, has that ability to be empathetic, you know, that's a given for them. They won't have to learn that anymore. You know, for people who are naturally really curious and proactive, they're going to be a lot better than those who you have to almost teach to ask the right questions, because it's not natural, right? So yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think, like anything, you could definitely teach people to do it. They're just not going to be as good as the people who are naturally, you know, more inclined to do it and also get taught. So, for example, with me with maths, for example, I was always okay, but you can never teach me to be like one of the further maths kids. And then, you know, contrary to that, there are people, for example, like my girlfriend, who she, you know, wouldn't be able to speak to people like we are now, and vice versa. You know, there are things she does that I absolutely couldn't do, and it's all about that natural, natural alignment with said job role. I think is what we're getting at here. So BRMs, the best ones in my opinion, are born, but I feel like you can, you know, if you're not born with the BRM gab, then you can definitely learn it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, that is pretty much everything from us. So just want to say such a huge thank you to Sarah as well. I feel like you've done an absolutely brilliant job there, Sarah, and some really, really great points as well. I'm sure a lot of people can take quite a lot away from this session. Now, we've obviously got a few people still here. So guys, if you feel free, if you just feel free to kind of ask any questions that you have, you can take yourself off mute, or if you want, you can just put them in the chat, and I'll ask away, and you'll get your answers. But guys, if you have anything, just fire it across, or unmute yourself, whatever you'd like to do.
Sarah, it's Joanne Maidment here. My current role isn't technically a BRM. I actually manage supplies, but cover a lot of the same areas that you do. And one of the things that I've found, and I think came out in what you were talking about, was the need to be resilient, but also actually have an integrity to curiosity and ask the awkward questions.
Yes.
And I just wondered, from your side, how far do you feel that helps drive your knowledge and success in that role? Because, you know, I've built a bit of a reputation at work that I'm proud of, that I'm a constructive disruptor.
Yeah.
And I'll always ask the innocent questions that seem to open up a great big can of worms. But it's coming from that, well, how do we do this? And how valid do you think that is in being successful in that role?
It definitely is a skill that I would always want to have in my team, without any doubt whatsoever. It's really appreciated having somebody like that in the team, and it's not something I'm naturally quite so good at. I definitely rely on other people for it. So that's an area of that I'm working on, and I definitely aspire to be more like that. So yeah, I would think as long as you do it in the right way, again, it's about this breathing in the positive and breathing out the negative, that if you're questioning people, make sure that it lands really well on them. My husband just started a new job, and he's gone in there asking loads of questions, and it's not been well received. He's not very popular. Not saying you're like this, Joe, but I've been coaching him, saying, you know, you could ask that question in a different way, and you might have had a different outcome. So yeah, it's being mindful of those relationships at the same time that you're doing the probing, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. And as you said, it's how you ask those questions. And
yeah,
even if it's, for me, I usually try and put some quantity why I'm asking that question, and that it's not about being awkward. It's like, well, I understand that and that, but I don't quite get how that fits into this picture, so how that adds value to what the overall delivery is.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to understand that, as you said, strategic picture, the holistic viewpoint, to make sure that when I'm doing my job, I can make sure it's tying in with those group strategies and thought processes.
Yes, if you think about it, some of those analytical techniques like the 5 whys can be quite threatening. Like if you say to somebody, why are you doing this? And okay, but then why are you doing that? And why? If you're receiving that, it could be really hard for people actually to be on that receiving end. So you need to be asking those 5 whys, but doing it in a way that they feel like they're comfortable to give the answers.
And I always get down to the fact of, I don't know this stuff. I'm asking because I want to learn and I want to understand.
Yes.
And so exactly. I always, with everything, I own the reason why I'm asking stuff. I don't put the onus on the other person. It's the, I want to know because I want to learn, or I want to understand, or your reaction made me feel this way. How can we work it better?
Yeah, I've been playing the newbie card a lot, obviously, at SSE, saying, I don't really quite understand this, so help me out here. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate that. Guys, any other questions?
Sure, yes.
Oh, yeah. Richard? Yeah, sure. How are you as well?
Oh, very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, all very good, thank you. Very good. Thanks for coming.
Great session, Sarah. Thank you very much. I have one question, I guess, or just to elaborate on the topic of born or made. With the BRMs that you've encountered in your career, I'm just curious as to what backgrounds they've typically come from, or what path they followed to get to where they were, and did that contribute to the making of them as a BRM? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's quite often people come from project management, and some from business analysis, and then some I think have come from, I think probably the most successful ones have been the ones that come from the business actually. So I think it's probably easier, in inverted commas, to learn about IT from the business than it is the other way around. Or maybe they just have a more natural empathy for people in the business because they've been there and felt the pain. Yeah, BRM is one of those roles that can come from many different angles, and then it can lead to many different things as well, can't it? So in my current team, I've got some quite young people who are doing it as their first job. And they're sort of fresh graduates and absolutely loving it because they're learning both sides of IT and the business.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm moulding them. But it's a great position to be in. I think business analysis is probably a more natural path because people in that space generally have to know about IT and the business. So that comes naturally. So I would quite readily recruit BAs into the role. But yeah, I think if you've got somebody in IT who's just very much a people person, then they can lend itself to it. And if you've got somebody in the business who's got a curiosity for IT, that can work as well. And then the path out of BRM to the future is equally open, isn't it? You can go more technical or go more business orientated or go CIO type route.
Absolutely.
So yeah. What's your experience, Richard?
Well, interesting. My own background, I was a business partner at Tullow Oil for a while, and previously I come from consultancy, and before that actually from a sales background. And what struck me about the role was the parallels between sales and account management. And it's very similar, being that face of the company, as it were, in the face of the service, and really having to take on that care for it. And what you were talking there about resilience as well, you're the one on the firing line for all the flak as well when things don't go right. And I guess what I might add to that is just, it's not about you, it's about the role. And that it's not to take things personally when you're in that situation. Sure.
Yeah, it's great point, thanks.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much, Richard.
Cheers.
Jag, sorry, I saw you you raise a hand as well. How are you? I love your Christmas tree as well, by the way.
Thank you. Partial Christmas tree at the moment. It's not fully decorated yet.
It's all right. You get away with it.
No, thank you, Nathan, and thank you, Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Jack.
Brilliant. Brilliant evening. So I don't know if it's a question really, but I think our role, everything you've touched on is so important, and we complement the CIO in so many ways. So you started off with saying, you had a change of leadership, and that's what I find sometimes quite exhausting in this BRM role, is you sometimes have to justify the role and constantly rebuilding that trust as obviously people move on and the stakeholders move on. But just we can complement the CIO in so many ways. If we're there at 5,000 feet and they're at 10,000 feet, we've got the inside track and so many things. And as you touched on the analysis, if there's a CIO who wants more rich analysis, key headlines, and we can provide that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just interesting that, and I do kind of rue the day that ever happens to me, if.
Yeah. No, definitely. The best BRM roles I've been in have been the ones where I've been the right-hand man for the CIO. That's really worked well. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Guys, any other questions at all? I think actually Melissa posted one as well, Sarah. So she just said, do you have any tips for a new BRM just starting out in an IT function which is not used to having a BRM, so a newly introduced position? Do you have any tips? And by the way, she's in the defense sector as well, right, if that helps at all.
Okay. So when it's a new BRM function, the most important thing you might think is about training up your BRMs, but actually it's not. It's about training up everybody around you. So it's about getting all the stakeholder buy-in from the beginning. So ideally get your CEO, not CIO, but CEO, to tell everybody in the business, we've now got a BRM function and this is why you're going to change the way that you do IT. So this is what the BRM role is. They're going to work with you on your demand. They're going to help with your IT strategy and business strategy. And that's how you've got to engage now with IT. And if that message comes down properly from the CEO to the rest of the business and explains it clearly and explains what your role is, then that's half the battle. People on the inside being that BRM can easily get trained and they can do the BRMP and they can do all of that. But if the rest of the guys don't understand it, you're really going to struggle. And that's not only on the business side for them to understand it, but also the rest of IT. So I've seen BRM functions failing when the rest of IT don't really get what BRM does and just see you as the fluffy people on the edge that don't really deliver anything. Well, we don't deliver anything because we're not about delivery. We're about smoothing the wheels for everybody else to deliver, right? and sometimes, IT people particularly can't see that. So yeah, if you haven't got that air cover from your CEO and your CIO, making sure everybody else understands the role, then I'd definitely agitate for that and try and make it happen.
That's such a good point, Sarah, as well. So guys, I'm not sure if you know, but BRMs and business partners absolutely love it. It's one side of what I do, but I also focus on IT directors, CIOs, heads of IT, etc. And you'll actually be very surprised as to how many don't have a real good understanding of what a business partner is and what they do. It's just a case where, there's not so much exposure for BRMs and business partners. The true value of them isn't understood by some people, and it's absolutely imperative that you kind of, scream and shout about the value you can add and how things almost not that you'll manage upwards to the CIO and say that CEO and say this absolutely needs to change, but when you've got a function in that's never been there before, you have to really convey the value of that function and why you're there and what you're going to do. So yeah, I think that's a big thing, Sarah. Good point about making sure they're aware you're there. This is what you do. I'm here to change the way things are within IT. Else there's no point of you being there, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So guys, any other questions at all before we go, or points or observations or anything at all? Hi, Craig. You okay?
Hi there. Hi there, Sarah. Really interesting to hear your talk tonight. I suppose the environment you work in, the organisation you work for, clearly has a massive role to play in
Yes.
the qualities that are at play there. And you sort of stress the word of caution in terms of, you know, not overdoing some of those qualities. But I suppose, you know, I find myself that you clearly want. There are times you do that because you want the business and experience of the IT department to be a good one. How do you strike that balance? You know, in terms of, you know, what is there any advice you can give in terms of, how do you strike that balance?
Yes, quite often it's a judgment call. So sometimes it's worthwhile getting involved in small things just to build some goodwill. But you don't want to end up doing that all the time. So you need to be able to take the escalation if it's, you know, my laptop's broken or something, and then point people into the other direction. So sometimes you might need to help your service function to understand how your stakeholders are feeling about poor service. So you take it on, but then you deflect it to where the problem really belongs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got some examples of that at the moment where our suppliers are not being as good as they could be, shall we say. And it's not my issue to solve that problem, but it is my issue to make sure that people who can solve the problem understand why it's a problem.
Yeah.
And then face off back to the stakeholders to tell them that we've got it in hand.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, if the stakeholders though are like my one that was working 70 hours a week and was getting nowhere, you have to pace them sometimes before you can lead them. That's the other. So there's definitely a judgment there.
Yeah, because it can create quite a drag, can't it? As you're obviously trying to focus on those things that are more important to the organisation, the more strategic stuff. But if you're constantly getting, you know, you kind of make a rod for your own back that people then will just keep coming for more and more.
Yeah, I mean, my first few weeks and months at SSE was in the midst of the COVID crisis, of course. So my first job was just getting laptops out there to the field. Like, that's not what a BRM would normally do. No way. Especially not somebody who's trying to head up a BRM function. But that was what I had to deal with. And I just thought, well, if I do this, it will build a lot of goodwill with people out in the business, and my name will get known, for better or worse. And I'll get to understand the business a bit more, because I'll need to understand what they need on their laptops, why they need it, how important it is, what they, you know, how they're going to work on paper in the meantime. So just I made that choice, I suppose, not to complain about it and just go with it. And I did get quite a lot of recognition, luckily, from it. But I did feel like I was a few months behind where I should have been in developing the BRM role. When I sort of sat back and looked, you know, I've been there 9 months now. I'm probably only 3 months into it, really. But yeah, it's a judgment call.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions, guys and girls, before we wrap it up? We have been through quite a few, so it's all right if yours has already been answered or you've run out of ideas. No, I will take that as a no. So yeah, so Sarah, no, I mean, thank you so much for the session today. I feel like you know, people have signed out, have left a message as well to say how helpful it is. I'm not sure if you've got to check that yet, but yeah, a lot of people are commenting on you know, the value you've added, and I'm sure everyone here can echo that. Yeah, it's been a really interesting kind of discussion and debate as well, and it's really good as well to go over those, you know, 9 essential qualities for a successful BRM, and it almost digging a bit deeper into you know, whether you can brush up on them, or, you know, maybe your effort's not really worth it in certain areas and it's better to put it into others. So I feel like it's been really good for a lot of people.
Great. Yeah, it's been really good. Thank you for inviting me.
No worries at all. Pleasure to have you, Sarah. Well, everyone, that's pretty much a wrap. So thank you so much for everyone to come in as well. I appreciate with some people it was last minute. For example, Paul, yourself, I know it was a final call to you. So thank you very much. And thank you all so much for coming. It's been awesome, and really looking forward to doing these as well in 2021. I feel like it's kick-started. We've got a good number of participants in each session, around 30 now, so the credibility will build, the topics will build as well, and more ideas will come off the back of it. So yeah, let's move on to 2021. I'm sure there'll be an event every month.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nathan.
Awesome.
Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, Sarah.
No worries at all.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.